Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Rosenbaum, the head of South by Southwest EDU. I'm so excited to have you join us for another installment of South by Southwest EDU Online. Today, we're excited to have the filmmakers and leaders behind River City Drumbeat do a live Q&A with a conversation with the community today. River City Drumbeat is a truly powerful film about the work of the River City Drum Corps. I hope you've had an opportunity to watch the film, but even if you haven't, I know this will be a meaningful conversation for all. Now I'd like to turn it over to filmmakers Anne Flatté and Marlon Johnson, as well as River City Drum Corps leaders Edward White and Albert Shumake. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to be here. I'm Marlon Johnson, one half of the directing team of the film River City Drumbeat. I'm also joined here by my partner, Anne Flatté.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, South by Southwest EDU, for having us. We're so excited to be here and answer questions and to be joined by Mr. White and Mr. Shumake.
Yes, so before we get started, we would love to have an opportunity to show you the trailer of the film and then kick it back and do a Q&A led by Albert Shumake. So let's go to that trailer now.
I question my ancestors, whose names I may not know, in respect for their great struggles, that I struggle to grow.
Our culture is going to be our savior. If we tap back into their culture, you'll find out that's where the power is at.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that trailer. We're here and we're joined by Mr. Ed Nardi White. Hey, Mr. White, how are you?
I am marvelous. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be here under these circumstances. It's good to see everyone's faces. Also, Albert Shumake, who will be mediating this event today. Hey, Albert, what's going on? How are you?
Good afternoon, Marlon. How are you? I'm doing very well, thank you.
I'm doing well. You're looking good. Good to be here together under these circumstances. So, without further ado, I'll pass the baton over to you and let you handle this and start us off.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us. I have some questions here. The first question I will direct to Anne Flatté, the director of the film. Anne, how did you meet the River City Drum Corps group, and what made you decide to get involved with creating this film? And after you've answered that question, if you want to let Marlon tag in.
Sure. Yes, Marlon and I are the directors of the film, and well, we came to this project through through our producer Owsley Brown. Who is from Louisville, and Marlon and I had worked together on a music series before, and we each have a long history separately of working on music-related films. And when we heard about this story of River City Drum Corps, we knew that this was a story that we wanted to explore together. And when we met Mr. White and found out about the work that he was doing and had been doing for 30 years and the results, we just started exploring that idea together. And I'll let Marlon take it from here, because that was 4 years ago that we started working on this project in earnest, and a lot of things came together. And one of them was when you had that amazing first week with River City Drum Corps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I met Albert and Mr. White, and there wasn't any real intention of making the film per se. It was more about whether or not we thought there was something there. And I don't know if you guys remember, we met in the hotel lobby and we just sat and we all talked about all the similarities we had in life experiences. And I was literally in the middle of Mr. White and Albert, and we found so much commonality. And when you're making documentary films, it's really a two-way street. There's so much dedication that goes into it. We put in years of our time and of having the participants trust us, and so we have to be confident that it's worth our commitment as well as theirs. And it was pretty immediate for me, and to know that yes, this is something special that they have here. So again, thank you guys, thank you, Anne, for offering it as a partnership.
It was a story that clearly needed to be told, and a very complex and important story.
Yeah.
We have another question from Jordan Roberts. The question is, the film shows the incredible power of community. How are you thinking about community now? What has shifted or been reinforced in your thinking? If any of you would like to answer that question, I do have an answer, but I will wait.
We'd
Marlon
like to hear your
Mr.
answer,
White.
Albert.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. I think the power of community during a time like this is really heightened because everyone has been isolated to their own homes, and we are social distancing. And so you really get to find out who is part of your community, because you have to take some time to reach out and make connections that you normally wouldn't have the time to do when you have your regular work schedule and all of your obligations outside of your house. So I think that for me personally, my community has been strengthened. Those of us who are artists have been coming together and trying to find as many ways to use art to brighten people's day, to change people's outlook on the severity of what's going on in the world. We can see what's happening in the news, but we have the power to change someone's mood, someone's outlook, someone's intention as artists. And I think that a lot of artists, I think the global community of artists as a whole are coming together to show that through art and through creativity, we can cope through the conditions of the world. Anyone else?
Yes, for me, community. See, I grew up in community. Integration has a lot of pluses, but it has one big minus. The minus is that it destroyed the Black community, because before integration, we understood that we had to depend on each other. But once integration came, then everybody was every man and every woman for itself. So that scattered everyone. So when I put River City Drum Corps back together, River City Drum Corps, the strength of River City Drum Corps was the group of leadership behind me that understood community, where we all depended on each other. So people saw my face, but they didn't understand the teamwork that was behind me, that thought like I thought, that was able to empower River City Drum Corps to what it was today. And then our biggest obstacle is now training this next generation to understand that the community is more powerful than the individualism that they live on today. And so that's where I'm at.
Yes, I think the more of us that are together, the stronger we are. And that goes across the board. Unity is the main word of community. We all have to come together and we can make it through these times. And Marlon, do you all have any input for that?
Yes, I can say something. As a parent of 2 children, one of the things that really brought me closer to this story was the idea of, that it takes so many people to raise children. It is so much more than the parent that it takes to raise children in America, or probably anywhere, but my experience is here. So, and one of the things that I thought was so important that came through, in this film is how many people it takes to raise somebody. And so I hope people, understand that it's so important to invest in the youth of the country, and we have not really, and in arts for the youth of the country, for everybody, I feel like it's critical. And it has not been what we have been doing. And I think that is so, River City Drum Corps shows what happens when a community comes together to give children what they really need. However, they're in the face of, of society and the legacy of society and the history of this country. And so I found that story very compelling and also relevant to everyone in this country.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ann.
Want to go on?
No, you say it takes a village, and in a time like this where all of the students across the country are at home by themselves or with their families, they're missing out on their classroom communities, their sports communities, their after-school work communities. And so we've had the opportunity to do just as we're doing now, meeting with our students virtually, doing some Zoom interactive things. We've made drum pads out of phone books and tried to get them to use some of the things that they have at home. We've done some teaching online, and when you're not able to see the people that you're used to being with on a regular basis, it gets very difficult. So we have been activating our community in the most extreme way. This question is for Marlon. And this comes from Justin Smith. The question is, how long did you spend working with the band, as in the River City Drum Corps, and what was the time frame that you were expecting to work on this film with us?
Okay, so how much time did we spend? I think we shot, when I came on in 2016, I think Kwanzaa during that period was the first time. And on and off for a couple of months for about 18, I want to say.
Wow.
As a documentary filmmaker, right?
Yeah, 18 months.
18 months. And so as a documentary filmmaker, it's a very organic process, because you seldom go into it knowing, first of all, the outcome, and knowing how long the process will take. It's one of the things that really distinguishes it from fictional narrative. If you are doing it properly, you allow the story to tell you what it wants to tell rather than the other way around. So it's very difficult. If I had to put kind of a number on the average, I've done 5 or 6 now features. Somewhere in between 2 to 5 years is about average. And so, but it's one of the beauties of the film. It's one of the beauties of filmmaking and documentary filmmaking is that there are more questions in the beginning than there are answers.
Right. Thank you for that, Marlon. Yeah, I think that you did a great job. You and Ann had done a wonderful job of just letting the story settle in.
Exactly.
Being a subject of the film, there were no stage moments, all of this was very much based in just our everyday lives, and you all captured, I guess, the magic that Mr. White has been practicing for over 30 years. Me being one of his original students, I am a direct reflection of that. So I know what that power is. And, I think through like the Youth Pledge and the Nguzu Saba and those things that we were taught to recite on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, it became a part of our, part of our DNA. Mr. White, this question comes to you, and it talks about the opening of the film. And after Mr. White answers, I would like for you to talk about this too, Marlon and Ann. The Youth Pledge begins at the beginning of the film. What is the significance of the Youth Pledge? How did it come about into your life, Mr. White? How did you start to introduce it to us as to the students in the program? And then Marlon and Ann, how did it come to you to use the Youth Pledge kind of as the timeline that tied the whole film together? Mr. White?
Well, for me, I'm going to answer the first question first. I think
Please.
the opening with the Youth Pledge was brilliant. I mean, that is the brilliance of what we do. And when it opened, I said, they got it. They got it. They got it. They got it. The Youth Pledge really was a poem from a friend of mine named Umar Williams. And when I read this poem, I was thinking about all of the other organizations that have their foundation rooted in a promise that the members make to themselves, to a foundation that is going to guide them through the rest of their lives. So if you think about the Boy Scouts, you know, what's their motto? Always faithful.
Do your best.
Yes.
Always faithful. Okay.
Always faithful. Yes, always faithful. You think about the United States Marines. Semper Fi. Okay. So you look at all of these organizations that have these pledges that are used as their foundation and their motivational steps. So, and I guess the greatest thing is the first one is to tie their children to the Creator, to let them know that there is a higher power, and that higher power is giving them a purpose. And this is my belief: if you don't fulfill your purpose, you got to come back here and do it again. So I know that's a thought that I have. And so therefore we need to connect them to their purpose. Once they connect themselves to that purpose, then they have a roadmap to do what they're here to do. You know, I look at Jalen Level. Jalen Level, you know, they tried to make a football player out of him, but he finally decided that wasn't his purpose. So arts and education was his purpose. He connected to it. He studied journalism and communication at Tennessee State University. Through his school, he has already won a couple Emmys. And so through that connection, Jalen is on his way. I think of Brandy, who connected her purpose as being a teacher. She went to school on a scholarship, graduated in 4 years with no debt. Only had to get some debt to do her graduate school. She did that in 1 year. So 5 years sticking to her purpose. She's been teaching for, I don't know the number of years, but she has been moving on. So it was brilliant. When I saw that, I said, oh my God, they got it. Somebody finally got it. And now the whole world can see it. So, you know, that's where I am. And, you know, and then there's some other things, but I'm going to get off right now.
Yeah.
And you want to speak to that process?
Well, you said it so beautifully, Mr. White. I mean, I really am looking forward to what Marlon says about this, but I will just say that I have found that having a grounding statement like that is useful, I think, for everybody to kind of start their day or frame. I've observed a lot of teachers in other projects, and the most successful ones do this kind of framing of what they're going to do to settle down the class, to inspire and to get into the groove of repetition, which you need in order to accomplish anything. You need this kind of, practice. I would just call it a practice, like a practice. And although I don't say the Youth Pledge, I do something similar, every day. And that is how I start my day. as opposed to, say, scrolling through the news, which is a terrible way to start a day psychologically, you know. So then I move on to other things after it. So it's something that I've used in my own life, this idea of like grounding yourself. And the pledge is, I mean, a beautiful, I have learned so much from that pledge, and just watching how you have used it with River City Drum Corps. And I just want to say, I have learned a lot during the last 4 years myself from the Drum Corps that has really helped.
Absolutely. To add to that, and I agree wholeheartedly with what everyone said, but more specifically as a filmmaker, when I was there to observe the pledge for the first time, I was kind of blown away by its beauty. And when Ann and I were in the editing process, you know, I've always had this belief in the rules of three. And so one of the things we did was we used it 3 times in the film at different stages. And, you know, I believe that you use it once, it's kind of accidental. You use it again, it's coincidental. You use it a 3rd time, and it's intentional. And it worked as a connecting device, a connective tissue for the film. And I didn't know that going in, which again is a beautiful thing, and how powerful it is in the moment, but then how much it was able to serve the film after we were done filming.
Thank you, Marlon. And you said something that was very powerful. You said repetition as a practice. And, you know, we think about our students who practice music on a regular basis, how much time they put into becoming better musicians. And one of the, you know, grounding principles is that, or one of the grounding thoughts of the Drum Corps is that we use the drum as the hook to get the student involved, but it's not about making drummers. It's about preparing students for the future and being contributing members of society. And we look at this pledge as a rudiment. You know, you practice that rudiment every day until it becomes second nature. Then when life starts to get more difficult, you can look back on those rudiments that you've learned to practice and have a way to navigate. And that's a powerful thing for our students to have, is that foundation, because you think about the words that you speak become things. So the more you think things, and you say things, the more they come into the world. So we want our kids to be prepared, to have respect for the earth, for their ancestors, for the people that they interact with on a day-to-day basis. There's another question from Justin. This question is, what expectations do you have regarding outcomes on the community, and specifically the youth that you have highlighted in this powerful story? I'll speak to that. We think of expectations. Our primary expectation is to make sure that our students do not become products of their environment, whether that be single parent homes, whether that be a neighborhood that is riddled by violence or low income, whether that be just the popular culture of the world that teaches kids that they have to be consumers and not producers. I think the first thing that we expect out of this for kids to see all avenues of occupation, of art, of life choices as something that could be viable. So they want to look at someone who has taken art in their life and used it to empower them. Then they can look at Mr. White, and then they can look at me, who I followed his footsteps in, you know, taking art seriously and using art to be my gateway to education. We teach our kids on a weekly basis, you know, educational standards, reading, writing. We teach them plain life skills: hello, goodbye, yes sir, no ma'am, looking people in the eye. All of those, we call them soft skills, but these are things that used to be standard before we were slaves to our devices and games and swiping. Now with this film, our kids can see that the work they do is valid, that people all over the world look at them as inspiration and see greatness in them, and they can in turn take that and empower themselves. I Does anyone else want to speak to that question?
Yes.
Mr. White, what expectations? Yes, please.
Go ahead, I'm gonna let you finish.
No, that was it. What expectations do you have regarding the outcomes on the community and specifically the youth highlighted in this story?
Basically, what my expectations is that we have given children choices based on art, based on culture, based on education, and use those choices to make the right decisions. It's kind of like it's door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. So basically what we do is we give you the information and the tools to let you know that what's behind door number 1, what's behind door number 2, and what's behind door number 3. So that when you get there, you know what the rules are within those doors. I kind of say it's like, we wear the mask. And so when you wear the mask, you know what situation you're going into. So you know what the rules are, what the outcomes are, what the expectations are. So being empowered with the information that we given you at River City Drum Corps, you know what mask to put on. So because basically also what we do with those expectations is you cannot control what's going on in your community. The control that you have is, do you want to participate? And if you choose to participate, then you go in it knowing what the outcome's going to be. So it's like, no, I'm not doing that. My friends over here, it's good. I see y'all on the other side. I'm not doing that. So you're able to make the choices that are beneficial to you, beneficial to your family, beneficial to your community, and then you come out with the right outcomes. So the outcomes are going to really be based on what choices do you make based on the information that you've got. So that's that is our expectation is what choices are you going to make based on the information that you have, based on what kind of outcomes do you want.
Yeah, and to that point, Mr. White, I think the other beautiful thing to piggyback off of what you said, the beautiful thing about River City is that it gives the kids tools to be the best versions of themselves. So often the circumstances in which they live in, they are told very narrow options. They are given very narrow options in what they are able to be. And your organization allows that to be widened. I remember some of the first times I came to set and the kids saw me, and may have been there sometimes or not, but they were impressed, I would say is the best word, or they were inspired by the fact that someone that looked like them was able to kind of come and tell their story and lead a team of professionals. And that gave me personally a greater sense of responsibility. And I think more reflections of that is important in communities like this.
Yeah.
My friend, go ahead, Ava, I'm sorry.
I just want to say that, it also, I hope that one of the results of the film is that people, both youth and adults, appreciate and really, really understand the importance of mentors and teachers, like the critical role of mentorship and teacher in all of our lives. I mean, I think any one of us could speak about like the mentors and the teachers that made differences in our lives and got us to wherever we are. And that is just a huge thing that I hope youth will, ask for mentors if they are able to, and find them, and that adults will mentor other people, and give back in that way. I think there's so much more everybody can do for each other. And
in closing on that, the things that our main focus is, a lot of children have, as Marlon said, have been given small choices. So the choices that they have is like, it's this adage that you can only be what you see. So if you see mess in your life,
Right outside. I'm sorry, proceed. I apologize.
yes. So, you know, we give them opportunity to be what you can see. And so therefore, we're going to give them wide options of things that they can see so that they can be. And one thing this is for you, Marlon. Jalen, you have inspired Jalen to go to, you know, to go so far, you know, that now he is really starting to understand that this journalism thing, he can do it, and he's doing it on his own, and he's starting to edit. So all of the stuff that you put into him is what we do when we bring people into our children. He's taking it off and run. So, you know, you can be what you see. So we try our best to let our children see a whole lot of things that people say that they can't be. And that's a lie.
That means more than any praise I could ever receive. So thank you.
It's the truth.
That's great.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you all. This question is for Marlon. Marlon, and it comes from Lentoria Newton. The question is, you have produced a lot of musical documentaries in the past. What makes River City Drumbeat stand out from your other work?
Thank you, Lynn. No, I think that the most specific thing that's different than the other films that I've made before is the level of intimacy that we were able to have and convey with the participants in the film. I've done films before where it's been about a particular timeline, a historical timeline, or someone who's somewhat famous per se. But this one was very intimate, and it required a lot more patience and a lot more trust. And it was our jobs as filmmakers to, you know, one of the things was to have the unfamiliar seem familiar. You know, our audiences, for the most part, aren't going to know the participants in the film. But by the end of it, if we as filmmakers have done our job properly, they feel like they know them. And that's been what's been the most separate from the other films that I've done. When we've done the physical in the past, in a world far, far ago, when we've done the physical film festivals, and at the end we surprise the audiences by bringing the participants up on stage, it's always kind of a magical moment where they're like, oh my God, I feel like I know them. I feel that, you know, we're bringing superstars in the flesh. And that to me feels like we've done a successful job. And that's been the most different for me in the other films that I've done.
You know, I think that when you speak of that, it talks about that really highlights how heavy Miss Zambia's influence is on the program, and her openness as a person, me being, you know, one of her many godchildren, mentees, whatever you want to call it, of, you know, I come from a lineage of students that she has extended her hand to, her service, her time, her energy. And she always would say that a closed hand receives nothing and a closed hand gives nothing. So I know that having you and Ann and the rest of Owsley's company come in to work with us, we trusted you all enough to give that access and to be open. And I think that openness definitely has shown in the film, just through our lives and through the way that you all have told our story. And that's incredible. This next question is, what do you expect the outcome of the usage of this film to be in schools? How do you expect it to be used? And I could let Ann speak on that, and then I could speak on that as well.
Sure. Thanks. So we really hope that the film will inspire audiences of all kinds to connect with the stories of the people in the film. That's sort of the main goal, is to create connections to create connection between this community and anybody who sees the film, like emotional connection, you know. And then, you know, if you're a member of the community that's depicted in the film, you know, and if you can relate, you know, you will feel seen, we hope, by this film, which is important. And then if you are, you know, outside the community that is in the film, we hope that you will, you know, the audiences will expand their understanding of the world, you know, through this film. So we hope that teachers and educators will decide for themselves how the film should be best used in their particular work. There are so many different kinds of educators, media studies, you know, music, African American history, I mean, history, on and on and on. And everyone, I think, will look at this film slightly differently, as well they should. And we hope that they will come up with ways to bring it into their work. And organizations will come up with ways to bring it into the work that they're doing if they're outside of a school. So I think the possibilities are really only numbered by the amount of people who get to see the film.
Absolutely. I think that the more people that see the film, just as you say, will understand the power of culture and the power of mentorship and the power of this do-it-yourself mentality that Mr. White has brought. You know, his own personal dedication to building a community. Hopefully, that will inspire an educator to plant a seed into a student outside of their regular obligation as an educator, and to go the distance with the student. I know that my story with Mr. White is I met him when I was 8 years old, and you know, I'm 38 in 2 weeks, and he's still a major part of my life. And it takes that type of investment to see success, to see the return on investment, or to see that seed grow. And so we hope that, you know, some teacher will take and in turn return the favor. We all made it here by someone taking that extra step for us, and we want to make sure that people understand the importance of that, and that they can in turn do it again. Mr. White,
yes,
you spoke in the film about culture being our savior. How has culture been your savior, and how do you know this to be true for the students in your program, or in our program?
Well, because the way that I know culture is your savior, because the culture that America presents as Black culture is not the culture that we come from. The culture that we see in America now is a culture that America has created for us. And so therefore, if you go back to, if you've seen the movie 12 Years a Slave, there's a scene in that movie when the slave smacks this white man, and the white man is so mad, and him and his boys are getting ready to hang him. Okay. And then he says, oh no, we can't do that, because this is such and such's property. And so because of that thought as being property, somebody's property, that's the only thing that saved his life. And so now, therefore, they've created this culture of that we have no value, that we made no contributions to the world. And so therefore, again, that's not true. So we got to be able to use culture to speak the truth, to let our children know that, you know, just like your example, woman told you wasn't going to be what?
Said I wasn't going to make it.
She told you wasn't going to make it, you know. But what did Zambia say? She said that's not true. She don't know what she's talking about. She didn't.
Exactly.
She don't know what she's talking about. Why? Because there's a cultural perspective that lets us know that there's power inside us, and within that power, if we stick to the belief that we are somebody, then we can be somebody. And so therefore right now, you got a whole group of people, as Marlon says, that says you only thing you can do is this, this, and this. Okay. So then what happens is that's what we try to be. You know, you've got Michelle Obama's got a new documentary out where her counselor told her that she couldn't be who she was. But Michelle said no, and look where she became. So the culture, when you grasp who you are, what you can be, what people did before you, and grasp that concept and use that concept, because man, what you're talking about over ain't nothing. So therefore we've got to do it, and therefore using it. And then when I go into schools, guess what children they give me? They give me all of those children
Worse.
that they said wasn't gonna be nothing, can't do nothing. And then in 6 weeks time, they come in and will say, I heard him say, she said, well, is that so-and-so? Yeah, that's him, that's her. Well, how is it that you can get them to excel and achieve on this higher level that I can't? Because you didn't believe that they could do it. And that's the way you treated them. So therefore, they already knew that you didn't like them, you thought they were dumb. And so therefore, there was a wall. So it become a wall. And when I come in and let them know, hey, man, hey, this is what we can do. We can do it. We believe in each other. These are the cultural examples. These are examples of people who look like you, just like Marlon. It looked like you. Once Jalen saw Marlon, Jalen put the 2 and 2 together, says, I can be this. You know, so once you put that together, you know, you think about John Glenn said, I'm not getting in that rocket until this black lady tells me that this computer's calculations are right. Once she told him that they were right, he got in the rocket, and they didn't bring that story to the light until after he was dead. Okay, so once we understand culture, the power of the people that came before us, and connect those two together, win-win situation. Hello.
Great.
Win-win situation. And I have plenty examples. You know, you look at Albert, I've got so many examples, so many children, so many things where the community has grasped upon the concepts that I have been able to, you know, because I went in 32nd and Greenwood. 32nd Greenwood was a very, very, very violent, very, very destructive place at the Boys and Girls Club. I went in, used the philosophy that I got, and I turned it around.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have those issues. What do you mean? They won't do what they do when they come in here. They either know that this is what we are expecting, and this is what I need you to do. And therefore, if you come in here, you can be successful. You know, once I went, it went back to Dodge City. You hear me? So we've got to be able to continue to pass that along and let the teachers understand that, you know, I have a young man that told me, you know, he called me up, he was highly upset. He told me that his history teacher told him that there was no Black history. What? What are you talking about? So, you know, I mean, we got to understand that, and we've got to be able to use it as a tool, you know, and so can you imagine a teacher tell a young Black man there is no such thing as Black history? So why are we gonna have a Black History Month? Really? Yeah. So, you know, that's where it's at, the power of culture. The power of culture can change this world. And then all you got to do is, not only for African Americans, look at the Jewish people. Why are they who they are? And then when I went to Miami, it was like, am I in America? Am I in America? You know, you walk into a store and a man is speaking to you, and he's speaking to a man in Spanish. You ask him for something, he tells you what it is in English, and then goes back to speaking Spanish like I'm not even there. Really? Also, that's where it is now. you know. So, and you look at the culture where these people understand their culture, use it, and empower themselves to be who they are.
Yeah, I want to say something about the scene with Ed Hamilton, the sculptor. I feel like that's such an important scene in the film because, he's talking about both of these things, which is one, the contributions to art, of like the Benin sculptors, and how nobody taught him that until later. But also the intervention of an art teacher who told him that he had something at the time when it was very important for him to hear that led him to then to become a professional sculptor. I mean, and so, the immense, power that teachers have to influence children in a positive way cannot be overstated. And also the immense amount of knowledge that needs to be imparted that is often not imparted in terms of the history of the contributions of all sorts of different groups of people to our history.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that.
We got another question for you, Mr. White.
Oh, no.
In the film, you acknowledge that good leaders need to know when to pass the torch. What was it like having Albert take over and knowing the right time? And that question comes from Nicole.
Well, I guess a good leader must understand first that what he's doing, what he or she is doing doesn't belong to her, him or her. If they're in it for the reasoning that they're doing it, okay? Because basically, I was just a steward. I was just a steward of the process that I was doing, because I came up through a boys club. It eventually became a boys and girls club, and I watched leaders come and go, and having conversations with those leaders as they were coming and going, and understanding that they were there for the process and not for the ownership of it. So I've got something that I'm here to give to you, and I'm going to give it to you. And then when it's time for me to leave, I am going to leave so that someone else can come in and take up where I left off. So basically, it became a time when it was no longer, I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the energy to look at how much I put into you to get you where you are. And then I looked at all of these other children that I started that were having children, and that I was getting those children. And therefore, each generation that would come back to me would say to me, oh, you let them get away with this, and you let them get away with this. We couldn't do this, and we couldn't do that. And then I said to myself, it kind of was like home. My mother had 7 children. The first 4 children are this way. The last 3 children are that way, because by that time, my mother was tired. And, so the younger children got away with a lot of stuff that we knew not even try. So therefore, in that process, I knew that it was time for me to go sit down. And so therefore, I scoured through the drum corps members that I had, who had the tools, who could do it. Albert wasn't the first choice. Okay. Albert was the choice that said that, and see, what you gotta remember is, whether he was not the first choice, he was the one that said, I'll do it. Okay. all right, when he said that I would do it, then therefore it became the right choice, okay? Because the first choice said he wasn't going to do it. And so I went down the line until I found someone who said that I would do it, because all of them understood what it took to do it, but none of them were willing to do it. You know, all people would say, well, my son's the first choice, but I knew my son wasn't going to do it. You hear me? So I never asked him, you know, so I went on down the line. So Albert was the one who said, I'll do it. So when he said I would do it, then I knew that it was time for me to give it to him. And then that what he would do is, and my mantra was, a change is going to come, because Albert is going to do what I taught him to do, but he's going to do it in the way that Albert thinks that it needs to be done. Okay. So since I have stepped on the sideline, a lot of times I don't agree with the things that he does and the way he does it, but he's the one that's doing it. So it's easy for someone to sit on the sideline and be a sideline quarterback. But as I look at it, it's still moving and it's still going forward. So, you know, that is the process. He's the one. He was one of the choices. But what solidified me saying that I'm going to give it up and not close it down, because I had two choices. I either had to one, close it down, or I had to find someone else to do it, because what I must remember and what Albert must remember, it doesn't belong to him. And at some point in time, he's going to have to do what I had to do.
Yes, I think the stewardship quest is something that came up in the film beautifully at the end with Albert, that he feels like he needs to be a good steward for the organization, you know. And actually, one of the things that I think, this is not a dynamic that is unfamiliar to a lot of organizations, you know what I mean, in terms of like founders, and how the organization can survive after the founder has left. Yeah. And so it's a very important thing that you've done here, I think, to show the level of care that needs to go into preparing an organization to survive for the future beyond the founder, because it is not a unique situation for a lot of community organizations, community nonprofits, you know. So I hope that, I'm so excited for you, Mr. White, that you have moved into the next chapter of your life. And, you know, I don't know if people know about this, because we weren't able to include a lot of it in the film, but you are now pursuing your dream of becoming a visual artist, and you've already done a lot. So yes. I love the whole idea of, you know, in your case, like a next chapter for your life, that, you know, there are a lot of older adults that need their next chapter, and you are a great model of somebody who is moving on to their next chapter in a beautiful way and in a very creative way. So I just want to shout out for that.
Shout out.
Well,
all right, y'all.
I want you to know I'm enjoying it. I am so happy that God gave me that opportunity to have a next chapter.
That's great. That's great.
That's awesome. We are coming close to the end of our time. I've been prodded. So we have one last question. Before we do that, we want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to us, the River City Drumbeat movie staff and company. We thank you. This last question comes from Nicole. And the question is, what is one thing you hope folks will take away from this film? And if we all could give one thing that we hope that they can take away, and we'll start with we'll start with me, and Ann, you'll go next. The thing that I think that we should want people to take away from the film is the power of mentorship and making an investment in a child's life, and committing yourself to doing that. I think it shows through myself, through all of the other students in the film who were highlighted, the dedication and the philosophy that Mr. White and Ms. Zambia put into this program for us to have knowledge of who we are and what our greatness can be if we live up to our potential. I think that's the one thing that I want people to take away from the film. Passing it on to you, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, I want to thank again South by Southwest EDU for putting together this panel and having us here. It's, you know, with the changes because of COVID and the festival changes, we appreciate you moving forward in this way. And I think in terms of the film, we'd really like to connect with educators and actually have kind of a conversation with you out there who we can't meet in person right now, but please contact us either through our educational distributor, Good Docs, which is can make the film available to you and your students through educational streaming, which it is available for now, or to the film team here at River City Drumbeat movie.com. All of our contacts are there. And we would love to hear from you and make arrangements for you to be able to use this with your students, you know, if you would like to talk with us. And we hope that this film will highlight the importance of teachers in our world. They are the hardest working people that I know, and the most important people, I feel, to the future and the present. And I think especially we need to pay attention to arts educators. It's really critical that we value that. So I hope people see that that is the case when they watch the film.
I'll go next to give Mr. White the closing remarks, but I echo everything that you two have said. I would also add that for me, the film is about the importance of giving kids who come from communities like the West End options, and how it really does open up a person's world and a person's perspective, more specifically the arts. I am a product of an art organization, and it was really a redeeming, a life-saving thing that happened to me, and the arts is really a powerful tool in changing and broadening a kid's perspective. And so I want to make sure that that is continued and that we place as much importance on the arts as we do on so many other things in our society. Mr. White.
Thank you very much. What I would like for people to come away with is understanding that the future is behind us, not in front of us, it's behind us. And what is behind us is the children. And we've got to be able to empower those children to be able to understand what their contributions can be to make this world a much, much, much better place. And that what they see is not what is what they can be. You know, you can be what you can imagine as long as you are if you can see it, then you can be it. You know, the River City Drum Corps has a thing that says if you can say it, you can play it. And so therefore, if the children are able to see all different kind of things that they can be, then one of them is going to grasp it and they're going to be it. So therefore, that's what I want to be able to see this film, that we can use arts and culture to change the future that is behind us. And what is behind us is the children. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you all for listening. I will open the floor for any closing remarks. This was, you know, a phenomenal experience. Thank you all for checking us out and for watching the film. And we definitely hope to affect the students in your communities through the work that we do. And I think I will pass the mic back to Greg right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thanks again for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time.